Hello, and welcome back to 560 AM Radio, where we discuss real-world issues concerning real-world people. The transcript for today's discussion and all of the resources we reference will be referenced on the 560 AM Radio website for your convenience and for your further research if you are interested in what we talk about today. Right now, I am here with Nate, a full-time editor here at the studio and full-time dad. How are you today, Nate?
Hello, I'm doing well, thanks.
That's good to hear. Today I have a very interesting topic ready for us to discuss. It is regarding teaching children basic math skills before they go to kindergarten. I'm looking at these articles that I've been seeing on the internet recently, and it's looking like it's very beneficial to teach young children math at home before they go to kindergarten, so they will be ready to hit the ground running once they're thrown into the traditional public school system with all of the other children.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things online about that, but I'm not exactly sure what it consists of. I mean, I read to my daughter a couple nights a week and on the weekends when I can fit it in, and I feel as though that is enough for her. It is hard to even fit that in because by the time I get home from my job here, we eat dinner and then she is ready to go to bed.
It's great that you read to your daughter. Many educators are always emphasizing how important it is to read to your kids at a young age, and I definitely agree. This topic of early educational assistance in particular actually hits home for me because when I was young, my parents always had my siblings and I working through math problems and counting things well before any of our other friends were doing the same thing in preschool. Personally, I believe that it definitely benefited me in the future when it came to my math abilities and confidence when it came to school in general. I was always ahead of everyone else, placing in top percentiles of standardized tests and easily being placed into top math classes across the board. Have you experienced the same type of thing?
My parents never really pushed education when I was younger. They both had full-time jobs and I never really saw them for long enough to work with them on homework or anything like that. I was never necessarily at the top of my class when it came to academics, but I wouldn't say I was at the bottom either. I feel like it does not really have much effect one way or another. Some people are just smart and some people aren't. I think that reading to my daughter should be sufficient, if not more than effective than that, for my daughter and I have never really considered working with her on math.
Yeah, for sure. Reading to your children is extremely important when it comes to giving them a good start, but what I'm seeing now is that it's also just as important, if not more important, to also work with them on simple math concepts outside of school so that they are ready for kindergarten and they can get a head start to be on par with the other kids. According to an article written by Hank Pelliser, a journalist who commonly focuses on brain development and education in his work, teaching children math before they go to kindergarten can be extremely beneficial in that it has been shown to predict future leadership success in more subjects than just math. In his study, done by researchers at Vanderbilt University in 2014, early ability in math was even able to predict success in future jobs and most commonly alluded to a correlation between starting with a strong math basis and having higher positions than those who did not have a strong background in math from an early age.
That's interesting. I always thought that I was doing the best I could be doing for my child. I really want what is best for her and would do anything to give her an advantage in school and for her future career. I just never know what kind of thing I should be doing with my daughter to help her the most. What are the types of things I should be doing?
Of course, everyone wants what is best for their children, regardless of what position they are in. Most parents teach their kids how to count to 20, which is an extremely important skill to know before they go to kindergarten, but they should also know what these numbers mean. It is recommended that they learn how to count things and what the numbers actually mean to get the most bang for their buck, according to a study done at the University of Chicago in 2011. In this study, it was estimated that preschool classes spend only 1 minute of each 6-hour day learning math skills and spend the rest of the time learning to read and write. This number is extremely alarming considering the massive benefits of learning small math skills at an early age. In addition to this, learning shapes can also be a very important skill to have going into kindergarten, but is not readily taught in a traditional preschool setting.
Learning how to count to 20 and learning how to count things does not sound like it would be too time demanding to do, and I think I could fit that in my schedule. I'm kind of shocked that preschools are not teaching their students as much as I thought they were. That's a real shame. I understand that there are a lot of long-term effects of learning math before kindergarten, but are there any short-term effects?
Of course, there are numerous short-term effects for the students when they are taught math from an early age. One of the major benefits is that learning skills such as counting and shapes can lead to the students being ahead of the learning curve from the start, and if everyone did it, the dramatic learning gap, which I'm sure we are both familiar with, that grows larger and larger as time goes on, will be smaller. This is expressed by an article written by Chris Daugherty that was published in the academic journal The American Educator in 2014, in which he explored the importance of early learning. Right off the bat, public schooling separates students based on their academic ability into different groups to work with people who are essentially at the same level as them, these groups primarily being math and reading groups. No doubt, we have both experienced this issue before, and I'm sure the majority of the listeners at home have as well. There were always those kids that were just better academically than everyone else, and no matter what you do, you just can't beat them. It was kind of like they had an unfair advantage, which they most likely did. Chances are, they started learning earlier than you when they were younger, so they were allowed to progress more. Not only that, but in 2017, a different study done by Matter and Shira, in which a stronger math basis was given to preschool children and their progress was monitored until they were in 5th grade, they did not only score higher on average math standardized tests, but also had a better attitude towards math itself as a subject area and were willing to do more things in that area. If students have a better attitude towards it, chances are they are willing to do more in that area and improve more.
I see what you're saying, but now I'm a bit confused. Why would teaching them math early allow for them to progress faster? I feel like that is contradicting other things I've heard in the past. I thought everyone progressed at their own rates depending on who they are as a person and what their ability level is. I think it is definitely beneficial if the students are ending up with a better attitude towards math so that it is easier for them to progress through it.
Contrary to popular belief, students actually have been observed to progress at relatively similar rates as one another, but the difference is some start before others, so everyone is starting at different points as they enter kindergarten. Manfra and Lewis conducted a study to conclude with this information in January 2014 and wrote about it in the Journal of Research in Childhood Education. This is a very important thing to understand when it comes to deciding what you're going to teach your children before they go to kindergarten and what you are not. Whatever you teach them, they will end up knowing better in the long run and will initially know better than other children in their class.
That's very interesting to know. I still feel as though it's weird that kids aren't being taught math at school if it is so important. How do I know if it really is important if they don't do that?
There have been a few instances where schools have been implementing stronger math programs in younger grades and then observing the effects of this on the students as they got older. A study was done in January 2014 that explored how early adolescent math education can benefit children as they progress through their later educational career. The study was done by having a control group and having an experimental group, where the experimental group received the treatment, which was a stronger education, specifically in math, before they entered kindergarten, while the control group did not have this extra education. The test subjects were tracked as they progressed to 5th grade, which was when they were all given the same standardized math test to see where they were at then. Those that were given the stronger math basis in the beginning scored significantly higher than those who experienced the regular education that everyone is given by default. This is just one of the many studies that has been done to show an improvement in performance when children are given more exposure to math topics before they go to school with everyone else.
Okay, yeah, I suppose I can see that making sense. If that is the case, it is too bad that preschools do not expose their students to all of the resources they really need before they go to kindergarten. I think that everyone should be given an equal chance to succeed and that they should all have the same opportunities that are not affected by outside factors. For example, I work a lot, so it would be hard for me to help my daughter at home because I simply do not have time to do so.
That is perfectly understandable. Most parents also do not have the time to work individually with their children at home for an extended period of time. It is very good that you recognize the importance of giving your daughter an education starting at a young age. Many parents do not even recognize this much. In April 1999, a study was conducted by Blevins NABE in which they asked a range of parents what they thought about teaching their children things at home outside of the classroom. This was a game-changing study because it gave insight into what parents actually thought and what they were willing to do for their students. That study found that overall, parents widely recognize that their students are not learning everything that they need to learn at school, and their education should be supplemented by at-home help. However, the general consensus for these parents was that they were not willing to help their children and teach them at home because they simply did not have the time, or they wanted to spend the time that they did have with their children doing other things, such as having family time or doing other more fun activities. The contradiction between what parents believe and what they are actually willing to do is rather concerning, considering they know their children are not getting the education they need, but they are still not willing to help them be more successful. In the same study, teachers were also asked about their thoughts about students needing to learn things at home, thus outside of the classroom. For the most part, they agreed that students would be more successful if they were given prior help at home when it comes to math concepts and how much they actually are learning at home compared to school.
Wow, I had not heard of that study before. I agree, that is rather concerning. I wish that more parents were willing to help their children, knowing it would more than likely improve their later academic success, and even possibly make them more successful when they get a job later in life. I do, however, kind of see where they are coming from with that idea. I have not before diligently tried to teach my daughter concepts at home, but I think if I were to start, I would not even know where to begin. It's so difficult to know what to do and if I would even be doing the right thing. I wish there were just simple things to do at home that would help. I, of course, want only what is best for my daughter and would never do anything that would lead her to fall behind other students and possibly even make it harder for her to get a job later in life. While it is weird that parents are not willing to do anything, I feel as though part of the blame should land on the teachers because they are not helping parents know what to teach their kids and what they should be learning at home. If teachers think this is so important, why would they not help the parents and give them some resources to use at home?
I was wondering the same thing, so I did a little digging into the archives to see what I could find. Some schools are actually beginning to give at-home resources to their students to use at home with or without the assistance of their parents to supplement the learning that they are doing in school. A study conducted in Paraguay in 2015 and published in the Global Educational Review observed the effects of implementing a program in which students were given extensive at-home resources to help further their math abilities. This article stresses the importance of having a strong math basis in preschool before learning primary and secondary level math concepts. These students were able to listen to audio recordings of lessons given by their teachers, which they did not necessarily receive if they were not using the new method. These students, of course, showed a great improvement later in their schooling, which allowed them to progress faster and learn more math than past children. It can be extremely helpful now that schools are considering implementing assistance to parents so that they know exactly what they should be doing to help their students outside of school. As mentioned before, teachers always recommend just doing simple things around the house or in your everyday life to expose children to more numbers and shapes. For example, counting things, naming numbers as you see them, pointing out different shapes, or anything of that nature.
It would be very beneficial to me if the teachers gave an at-home guide of what to do, such as the audio recordings you mentioned. I am glad that there are more accessible ways to access resources that are becoming available. I never really thought about doing things like counting things with my daughter or pointing out different shapes. That is definitely an easy way to help her without going out of the way and taking large amounts of time to work on specific things with her. I hope this type of effort by teachers continues because it would be very helpful to parents.
I agree. In addition to teachers helping the students more, the teachers are also getting more help now. According to a 2019 article published in the Journal of Early Childhood Teacher Education, the main reason teachers are not helping their students with math more extensively is because they are not confident enough about the concepts themselves to teach it in great depth. As a result, a new program has emerged, which is commonly referred to as a Head Start program, in which preschool teachers are given an extra focus on how to properly teach math to young students. It has been shown to help a lot and give students a better basis for learning in kindergarten and later in life. Before the program was implemented, teachers were asked about their attitudes toward teaching children math, and many of them did not regard it as important and just didn't want to do it. But with the new program in place, their attitudes have changed and now they have a more positive one and are willing to teach their students more math.
That is good news to hear. I am very glad that other people care about this subject as much as I do now. I never realized how important it is to help my daughter with math at home, but now that I'm hearing all of this information about it, I definitely agree that it is very important. Thanks so much for enlightening me on the subject. I will definitely be helping her starting tonight.
Well, that's all we have for today. A huge thank you to all of the crew members here at the studio that helped to make this show possible, and of course, a big thank you to our guest. I hope everyone enjoyed hearing about the at-home math education in preschool children. Tune in every Thursday on 560 AM radio for a new discussion about the educational systems.